Hey there, this is Bobby Hunt 3, BlueLightDiet.com, and in this interview, I have Chan Shipman, also known as on Instagram as the NightShift BioHacker. Hey, Chan. Yeah.
Hi, Bobby. Hi, everyone.
Thank you for coming on and talking about light and the night shift and nursing and everything like that. So you're a nurse, you're a night shift nurse, and you also know a ton
Yes,
about light and how that affects your health.
I do.
Well,
I
how
do.
did you even, that's very
So
rare for
I,
a nurse.
about 4 years ago, I went into night shift and I knew it was going to be a struggle because I've already seen it. And if you've been in the healthcare industry long, you know, night shift is a whole different beast from day shift working, and also 12-hour shifts. We're not talking about your usual 8 hours, you know, in the time frame. We're talking about full Panama schedule, which is 12 hours.
Hmm. And so did you notice as you were working the night shift, did you notice a decline in your health at all? Or how did you
A
in
huge
becoming the
decline.
night shift biohacker?
I actually had the fair advantage of knowing ahead of time that night shift would wreck my body. And then being a female, it wouldn't just wreck my body, it'd wreck my hormones first. There are many, many night shift nurses that at some point lose their menstrual cycle. They lose their period. That's usually a first sign of circadian health, and usually a first sign of hormone imbalance is when you no longer have a period. Most women actually go downhill in fertility, and they actually have to get off of night shift to conceive a child. So I know going in even before starting night shift that I needed a game plan, because I already know you're going to have the weight gain, your hair is going to fall out. It's like almost like going on a vegan diet, but you know, in reverse. And basically I knew when I interviewed for night shift, either have a game plan or don't. And I reached out to everyone I knew in the health and wellness industry, and I reached out to gurus, I reached out to even Western medicine folk. How do I hack night shift? But I didn't know I was hacking it at the time. It was more, how do I survive night shift? How do I get through night shift? How do I fall asleep on day shift? How am I going to get through the night without drinking 13 gazillion cups of coffee? You know, I knew all of that, and I reached out, and I remember lots of door closing in my face with this one phrase: it's going to kill you. You should quit your job. Don't do night shift. And I remember feeling so discouraged, and I sat back and I go, well, yes, I could find a day shift job. Nursing is always in abundance. I'm a trauma ER nurse, by the way. And basically, I looked and said, well, that's not helpful. What about my police officer friends? What about my other night shift doctors and nurses and phlebotomy? And there's a whole industry that's night shift, you know, strip club workers or whatever, and people who work in casinos, you know, firefighters, paramedics. There's a whole nother world on night shift. And I feel like if I was called to, you know what, I'm going to find it out. I'm going to hack it. I'm going to research it. I'll just immerse myself in the field research and then share my journey. And that's how I got started.
Wow. So what, uh, how are some of the ways that night shift, working on the night shift, affects your health in a bad way?
Weight gain. You've heard of the freshman 15 in college. Most night shifter within a year will gain 10 to 15 pounds on an average.
That's fun.
And we're not talking about just, you know, muscle gain or anything like that. There's also that area, but we're talking about joint pain. We're talking about back pain, how it shows up. We're talking about puffiness, stiffness. We're talking about, you know, brain fog, fatigue. Some people even confuse it as adrenal fatigue. And if you go in with adrenal fatigue, it's just going to be even more out of whack. If you have any chronic care issue, it's gonna be even more blown up. And if you don't, and you go in healthy, you're going to have chronic care issue. You have a higher chance of increased cardiovascular disease, diabetes, Most people on night shift are more likely to develop symptoms of a heart attack. There's a blood sugar irregulation. It's huge. You're basically living opposite of a normal circadian biology. And we're not, humans are not made to be night shift. We're just not. I look into the biology around that, and we're not. Our circadian rhythm rises and fall with the sunrise and set with the sunset. We don't eat if the sun's not out. It's not normal to eat at 9 p.m. and on a night shift. It's not normal to snack between 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. And it's not normal to be downing stimulants like coffee during that time frame either, or be surrounded by junk light. You know, and I know that junk light does nothing but really causes chaos internally for us, and it shows up.
So essentially what you're saying is that night shift workers, they turn with all the junk light, with the eating, with the working at nighttime, they turn nights into their night is essentially the daytime.
Yeah.
When it's really supposed to be nighttime, you're a diurnal, you're not a rodent, you're not nocturnal.
No.
And you're supposed to be sleeping at night. So all the problems that come from night shift work come because essentially you're violating the way your biology is supposed to be running.
Exactly. And your body loves balance, right? It loves the constructive feedback loop. And when you throw it out of whack just by not having melatonin release at a certain time or having dopamine increase at a certain time, it's like, whoa, what do we do here? We're going to increase your blood sugar. We're going to eat more because we think we're being chased by a lion. We think we're dying. We're not. We're just sleeping on daytime and working at night. But your body doesn't understand that. It's very primal. It's going to think that you're starving and you're going to eat more and you're going to have cravings. And that's where the weight gain kicks in. And that's where the inflammation starts.
So I would think one of the biggest, well, first of all, many people probably who are working the night shift, they have all these symptoms you were just talking about, and they have a clue that it's because of the night shift.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think a lot of people I've talked to, at least, they're night shift workers, and they have failed to connect night shift to all the problems that they're having.
Yeah.
So you've kind of hacked that. And I assume you don't get many of those problems anymore?
I don't. Oh. I have a normal menstrual cycle.
This is a reason to follow the night shift biohacker.
It's nothing fancy. It's nothing fancy. I had no cool gadgets. I didn't have a continuous glucose meter until much later. I didn't have an Oura ring until much later. I had a journal. I wrote how I felt, how long I slept, what I ate, when I ate. I wrote all the things that I did down, and I got to know my body. And then I started incorporating different avenues of light, cold thermogenesis, infrared saunas, blue blockers. They're huge and they're so accessible and affordable right now. And I always recommend to clients, those like the number one thing you should start with if you don't know where to start. Just start controlling the junk light.
So some of the problems with night shift, I think one of them you said was the biggest, and we see it in a lot of major studies, especially with nurses involved, is the disruption or the suppression of melatonin at night. And what does that lead to, at least in the long run, it seems?
It leads to all sorts of biochemical chaos. When they say night shift is a level 2 carcinogen, they're not joking. And it's basically stems back to melatonin. If we suppress it and we're not getting a natural release, then we're also causing chaos. Think of it like a wheel. You have day shift and night shift when melatonin rises, when it gets suppressed. And when you live opposite of that, you don't have that normal release. And then it goes back to you have fragmented sleep, right? So your body thinks you should be awake during the daytime and you're just trying to sleep. You're doing all sorts of little signs that tells your neighbor, don't knock on my door, I'm, night shift worker or something like that. But every little thing will fragment your sleep. And if you're fragmenting sleep, you're not recovering. Your body isn't repairing. It's not doing the things that it normally does. So that's why you go through daytime sleep, tossing and turning, and you just can't sleep. And so melatonin leads back to all of that. And then that's when over that trend, you start to develop signs and symptoms of chronic diseases.
So it starts out small with the menstrual cycle issues, sleep problems, et cetera. And then it progresses into, I think it was 2017, the Danish nurses study, where the increased risk of breast cancer was for night shift nurses.
Yep.
So it's
breast cancer, and I think they're also looking into testicular cancer. And I wouldn't be surprised if it, and there's no credit behind this, but I wouldn't be surprised if they tied it to the increase in brain tumors too.
Increase, yeah. Yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah, well, if you have those genetic components, you have the genetic genes for those type of cancer, and you live in an inflamed lifestyle, they're gonna get mutated. They'll get turned on.
Right, that's epigenetics. So you're giving those the environmental, the bad environment
exactly
to turn themselves on. Right.
Bobby, I had no idea what I was doing when I started this. I just knew I wanted to sleep for night shift work and be able to save lives. And my Instagram account has evolved so much from just night shift. I call it shift working now because it's really huge, because I thought I was just hacking sleep. Everybody thinks night shift workers sleep is the most important. It is. But then as I dig deeper, I'm talking about hormone imbalance. I'm talking about preventative diseases. I'm talking about chronic care, and then I'm talking about, neuroscience. I'm entering areas little by little of I didn't expect to learn or need to learn. It's crazy, but it is exciting.
And here's the crazy thing for everybody watching who's going, oh, thank God I am not a night shift nurse. Well, guess what? Everybody, I mean, most people, you're a little bit of a night shift worker anyway, because you probably have the lights on at night.
Yeah,
probably
we are. Yep.
Your circadian rhythm, you've got some kind of a circadian rhythm disruption going on every single night because you're on your iPhone.
Yep.
Playing video games or whatever,
Totally. Those all-nighters in college. We still got college students. And then, Bobby, we also have, a pandemic going on. And there's a lot of screen time going on. And my concern lately is screen times has increased dramatically for our younger generation, our kids. I mean, we started much later in life, probably in college, high school, when we started doing a lot more screen time, a lot more. I want my life to be the most efficient and optimized. So I'm going to have junk light on all the time. Why? Because I live in an advanced nation, an industrialized nation. But our kids are now entering it much sooner because of this pandemic. And the best part is that since we're living in an inflamed situation, they are starting to study and show increase in obesity in childhood even more now that we're in this pandemic. So people are going to start tied the tides to light.
And when you keep saying junk light, what is junk light?
Artificial light, fluorescent, and there's a lot of that in hospitals, right? I'm surrounded by it.
Worst lighting ever. I've seen.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Basically, other than even sometimes with incandescent light, I still hesitate with, but it's probably one of the best out of your LED, your fluorescent, the choices out there. But I do prefer natural lighting as much as possible. And if we do have to do evening work or before sunrise work, it's always red light for our family.
And for anybody, also that brings up a good point, is that it's not just night shift workers. Like, say you're in a hospital, you're working in a hospital, but also the patients in the hospital. I mean, they're exposed. You want to get out of that hospital as soon as you can if you're a patient, because of what's in the hospital that disrupts you all the time.
You're talking about, You know, I used to compare, if you look at it and close your eyes and you actually take a mindfulness, situational awareness in hospitals and you're healing as a patient, you're talking about barely no windows, artificial lights, lots of beepings, lots of Wi-Fi's, lots of disruption to healing in modern day medicine. But if you actually look back into like our tuberculosis days when they had sanatorium, they were all outside. They were in natural sunlight. One of the first heroines of nursing, Florence Nightingale, actually did most of her handwritten data taking and notes, and she all tied it to patients feeling better who has windows, their bed facing natural sunlight. And germs grow less slower, or they're less likely to overgrow. And they actually produce more of a healing environment. And hospitals are starting to biohack. There's a lot of hospital redesigning for floor to ceiling windows to allow for more natural light.
Still,
If you're fortunate enough to be in those hospitals.
so still your advice, get the hell out of the hospital as fast as you can.
Yeah. And you know, I always tell patients in the emergency room, go home. You totally heal better at home unless you truly need us. Go home.
Yeah, we stabilize you here.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
get out of here and go heal. This isn't the
You don't want to stay. You don't want to get admitted unless you have to.
So what is going on with, you said you're a nurse now, you've gone through this the COVID thing. Have you?
Oh, Bobby, I'm in the state of California. I think we have one of the strictest lockdowns going on right now. And our quantity of patients has slowed down dramatically to, you know, in the ER, and I can only speak about the ER. But our quality, our sick patients are coming in because now they know we're only coming in unless we're dying, unless we want to get COVID. But our COVID patients are coming in and they are truly sick. We're talking about this, I don't want to get too much into the virus because I can go off on the tangent for days. Anytime I get curious on anything, I just chase it and I need to research it all the way through. But it's a head to toe disease. We're seeing all different types of symptoms, but primarily sunlight does play a role in COVID treatments, and I do believe that. And that's getting your vitamin D naturally is one of the main contributor of preventative and positive immunity and building that self-immunity right along. And if you can get your herd to do it with you, you will get herd immunity. You want to create and cultivate that healing environment. But we are getting a lot of COVID patients, and they're not easy patients to handle. They're really sick.
No, they are, and I've seen a few hospitals that are putting COVID patients in light. They're wheeling them outside and putting them in light. I would imagine that a lot of the things you do for NightShift biohacking just apply to, could help people with COVID too, because you see that if you've got that circadian rhythm disruption, then that automatically leads to immune system depression. A lot of it does. So I would think that establishing that you know, bright days, dark night thing for everybody would be good, even for COVID patients.
Yeah.
So, okay, Chan, well, this was a fantastic interview. I'm sure most nurses I have talked to have no clue about all the problems that they're facing from working in the night shift, from being a night shift nurse. So you are one of the stars out there that I've noticed, one of the only people out there that I've noticed actually working on this night shift stuff. So if people want to follow you, You've got an Instagram page, right? And you give all tips and blah, blah, blah about the night shift.
Totally. And you'll get other biohacking stuff too. It's all related.
I saw
It
your
just
cool,
comes down to inflammation.
you've got the cool sauna that you use on your site. I like that. That's,
Yeah.
what's your Instagram page? How do people get there?
Yeah.
How do people get there? What's the page?
NightShift biohacker.
NightShift Biohacker. Okay, Chan, thank you very much for coming on today.
Okay. Bye, Bobby. Bye, guys.
And